I've always considered myself a rational person, a skeptic, a realist, a programmer. Everything must have an explanation, a logic. Ghosts, the paranormal ancient curses, these were for forums and scary stories on Reddit. But that was before we moved into our new house. My wife Catherine and I were tired of the city noise. We wanted solitude. We found it in a small town in Oregon. A house on the outskirts, a big plot, pines around the perimeter, and beyond them, an empty field. That field was the reason we chose this house. Freedom, space, safety. The first week was perfect. Catherine planted bushes. I set up my home office. Mornings, coffee, evenings, wine on the porch, and no neighbors nearby. On the 8th day, when she was standing at the sink, Catherine said, "Are you sure there was only a field behind the property?" I looked out the window. Beyond the old fence, a forest stretched out, dense, tall, wild. "That can't be," I muttered. I checked satellite images. It was a field. We opened the map. A week ago, a field. Now, a forest. The satellite hadn't updated. The forest had simply appeared. "Maybe we just didn't notice," Catherine asked, her voice trembling. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. For the first time, I heard something rustling in the yard, like footsteps or claws scraping the ground. On the third night, Catherine woke me up at 3 a.m. "Someone's calling me," she whispered. "There, in the forest. The voice sounds like yours, but it's not you." I heard nothing, but she was shaken. After that, we slept with the lights on. I set up a night vision camera with a motion sensor connected to my tablet. That night, at 2:13 a.m., the footage showed me in pajamas quietly leaving through the back door, walking into the forest, and disappearing into the darkness. I hadn't gotten out of bed. I checked the smart home logs. The door was manually opened. The password was entered by me. I remembered nothing. Catherine said she heard nothing either. The next night, I locked the door with a physical lock and hid the key. In the morning, the door was open. The camera recorded the same thing again, but this time I turned to the camera and smiled, too wide, unnatural. The eyes were empty. Every morning I took a photo of the plot from the same spot. After 4 days, the trees had moved nearly half a meter closer. After a week, they almost touched the fence. I checked the levels, the angles, distortions. No, the trees were moving. Catherine changed. She became quieter, often standing by the window for hours. I heard her mumbling in an unknown language. I decided to enter the forest during the day. Took a flashlight, compass, phone, said I'd be back in an hour. The forest swallowed all sound. No birds, no wind, only the crunch of my footsteps. After 20 minutes, the compass spun wildly and my phone froze. I wanted to turn back and saw a light ahead. Through the trees, a house appeared. Our house. The kitchen light was on and someone was walking inside. In the window stood a silhouette, me. Looking straight at me, I ran, screaming in panic. Someone nearby echoed my scream with a delay. Back home, the house looked the same. So did Catherine. But she poured tea with her left hand. "Have you become left-handed?" I asked. She smiled strangely. "You're mistaken. I've always been right-handed." "No, I know." She was right-handed. Now at night by the window, I see a figure at the edge of the forest, just like me. It doesn't move, just watches. I blink. It's closer. Catherine doesn't ask what's wrong with me, smiles too often. Sometimes her eyes don't reflect light. I'm not sure I came out of the forest. Not sure this is my house, but I know this forest wasn't here before, and it's crawling closer every day. I'm afraid to blink. After seeing the exact copy of our house in the forest and meeting my soulless double, I understood. The forest isn't just trees. It's something alive, something that changes reality around it. The next day, I barely slept. My mind was full of questions, but no answers. Catherine was silent. Her gaze grew colder, as if she wasn't quite the woman I married. I decided to go back into the forest, but this time I took a knife, flashlight, old camera, and notebook. I needed to understand what was happening and why. Approaching the forest edge, I felt a coldness that penetrated my clothes, though it was warm outside. The wind that usually rustled leaves was still. Birds were silent. The forest seemed to hold its breath, watching. I stepped inside, and the light dimmed immediately, as if the sun didn't penetrate the dense branches. I looked around and found an old, half-rotten sign covered in moss with barely readable letters. "Do not follow the voices." I froze. Voices? What voices? Suddenly, a quiet whisper echoed, a female voice. It seemed both near and far, inviting and terrifying. I gripped the knife and walked deeper. After a few minutes, I found a small clearing. On it was a table with several lit candles and ancient books. I approached and saw the books were written in an ancient language I couldn't read. Then I heard footsteps behind me. "You weren't supposed to come here," said a familiar voice. I turned and saw my double. But now he wasn't just an empty copy. His eyes burned with a cold fire. "Who are you?" I asked, trying not to show fear. "I'm the one who is meant to live instead of you." "This forest chooses," he said. "You're a guest. Soon it will come for you." At that moment, I heard branches crack and felt the ground vibrate beneath my feet. The forest was alive. I ran, my heart pounding, legs carrying me through the dark trees. I heard someone calling me, but the voice wasn't mine. Bursting out of the forest, I saw Catherine, but her eyes were empty. "You have to choose who's real," she said softly. I realized the forest had chosen. And now, I wasn't sure who I was. When I returned home, the house was quiet. But in the mirror, I saw not my reflection, but emptiness. And the forest is still creeping closer.